Calls to abolish, defund, or reform police departments grow louder across the country. What should be done to make the system more just for everyone? We'll talk about it with Representative Brenda Lawrence. And how racial disparities affect health, wealth, and so many other aspects of life here in Metro Detroit. Today is Sunday, June 14th, 2020. This is Flashpoint.
Hello and welcome to Flashpoint. I'm Sandra Ali. Devin is off this week, and it was a week packed with more goodbyes, protests, and calls for change in the name of George Floyd. They took place all across the country after a memorial service in Minneapolis, a private remembrance in North Carolina where Floyd was born, then a final farewell at the funeral in Houston where he spent most of his life. Then his brother, Philonis, gave emotional testimony on Capitol Hill, asking the House Judiciary Committee to make sure George's death wasn't in vain. So what can lawmakers do? Democrats introduced the Justice in Policing Act with provisions for things like creating a national police misconduct registry, mandating training changes, and banning chokeholds. And as with so much these days, some say it goes too far. Others say it's nowhere near enough. We'll talk with one of the bill's co-sponsors, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. The debate is against a backdrop of continuing demonstrations from downtowns to small towns. But from where we live to where we work to what happens if we catch COVID-19, Metro Detroit has a long way to go when it comes to racial equity. And we'll talk about it this morning. And it's one of the most consequential things you can do in under 10 minutes, but many people still haven't filled out the census form. We'll check in on where Michigan's count stands. It's all coming up this morning on Flashpoint. This week, Democrats in the House introduced the Justice in Policing Act, legislation that aims to increase accountability and decrease excessive use of force. Let's go ahead and talk about it with one of the bill's co-sponsors and the only African-American member of Michigan's congressional delegation, Representative Brenda Lawrence. It's so good to have you here with us. Let's talk about the bill. Is this bill enough?
Absolutely not. It's the beginning. There's so many layers of racism when we talk about Black Lives Matter, when we talk about values, and we have a democracy, justice in America for African Americans. That's what makes you an American. And it is so many layers, but this has been violated from what was viewed by addressing the immediate outcry from millions of people, not only here in America, the public, about police brutality in America, but around the world. When they think of America, about African Americans, they think about we are being adversely in policies, our freedoms and our rights. And this is acted by a justice system. It's just a total violation of that. We haven't talked about the economic. This is a start. But as we're talked about the education, having this really hard conversation, environmental. So you're going to see a bill about race in America from the Congressional Black Caucus after we pass. I know for a fact that this bill, which is that we are going to seize this moment, policing, and the Black Caucus is really leading the way, justice and in America with this, that we move from protest. You're going to see a bill for us, and from screaming voices, jobs and justice, which goes to what we call through the whole economic piece, transformational change in America when it comes to the education piece and to race relations, reparations and all of that. You're going to see that. It was said so eloquently by coming up.
It sounds like to me, if I'm hearing
Martin Luther King, Injustice to One.
You're right that you're saying this is basically
injustice to all.
You know, the start. This is the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
This legislation has been described by some. Do you think this is the best option for us as sweeping? You're saying right now?
Absolutely. I mean,
it's a start. How do we even begin to
see the amount of
have what, is being described as a need for
test and just total
for an overall shift, really, in police culture? It takes a lot and a long time to
the
change a culture.
Yes, it does. A volume of emotion to say this is unacceptable. Being a former mayor and having acceptable in America, whites, black, police department. I know for a fact, youngs, old, they're saying this fact that I depended on my police department. This must stop in America. This is not the American, but we had leadership that we, as a democracy, that said, you will treat all receive support. And, I often know of the residents of this city, remind people that there's whatever their race, whatever no ethnicity that defines their religion, their ethnicity, they're an American. It is that culture. You will treat them with dignity and coming together where we support, believe, respect. And what we're seeing is some values, and we have a democracy. Not, because a lot of people want to take this mercy. That's what makes you an American. And say we're demonizing police. Absolutely. And that has been violated from what was really not. But we have to view by millions of people, not only transform the person here in America, but around the world. When they think perception of America, they think about are there to help. There's trust. There to help. There's trust. In so many communities, we just had a a briefing today in Washington. I just came back home. And in the briefing, we had some community activists that say in some communities, we don't even call the police when there's a problem. We take care of it because we know if we call the police, they're not there to take care of us. They're not there to protect us. They're there to find a reason to incarcerate us or to create a record for someone. And so if they know if the police come, they're going to be slammed in jail, we'll try to diffuse the situation because we don't trust the police. And so I would say that there's some conversations with the unions, and I've always supported the unions because being a mayor, I know how important it is that you have a professional, trained, and responsive police department. It's essential to the quality of life that we expect in our communities. Everyone has sometime or another had to dial 911, and they have an expectation. But however, just like we have laws that if you drink and drive, not only will your license be taken away, you can be incarcerated, you can get tickets. That doesn't bother me because I don't drink and drive. So that to me is a good thing because it doesn't endanger other people, including me, with people who are drinking and driving. If there is a part in here about racial profiling, that we will make it illegal to racially profile. Well, if you don't racially profile, this law should not bother you. If you are not a police officer who has multiple complaints against you, as the officer did who took the life of Mr. Floyd, and so if that doesn't apply to you, you should be okay. And I know for a fact the union has to represent these officers that give them a bad name. Because this situation, so many officers have stepped up and said, that's not us. That's not me. And I know that's a fact. And so when we have the discussion about defunding police, that's not a conversation I want to have. But I had a town hall with police chiefs. And you know what they told me? Congresswoman, if a person's having a psychotic episode or they're dealing with their mental illness, who do they call? They call the police because there's no other resources. If you wanted to take money and establish a response system for mentally ill, it would help us as police. So those are the type of conversations we need to have.
And Congresswoman, you talk about building trust, you talk about responsibility. Part of this legislation is about creating a national registry where you talk about tracking police misconduct. That's no small task.
No, it's not. And understand this bill will say, because someone said, well, you can't make anyone do this. But what we're saying is that in order to receive federal dollars, and every police force does, then you should be in compliance with these laws. Chokeholds has been banned in this bill. I mean, that's a no-brainer. The training that was incorporated in the 21st Century Policing Commission that was established by President Obama, which President Trump dismantled and defunded it, it's in there as well. So we had a start with President Obama's police force, 21st Century Policing Commission, that has been incorporated. And then so what is important? I want people to grab hold to this. Not only was it just awful to watch that police officer take the life of Mr. Floyd, he was literally training new officers. So you think about that as these officers are in their fourth day, their third day, they're brand new, and they're being trained that this is the type of behavior that you should have as a police officer. And so when we talk about that registry where the FBI will be monitoring it, why aren't you addressing this officer who has had numerous complaints of excessive force, of being citizens saying that they went above and beyond? And so it also stops an officer who's fired to just go to another office and say, I have 25 years as a police officer, so hire me. No, you'll be mandated to look at the registry and see what kind of officer they are.
Congresswoman Lawrence, we so appreciate your insight and you joining us here. Obviously, we're just getting the conversation started, so we appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And it's time to move to transformational change. This country, we can do this. This is such a moving time. Being an African American, it's pulling at my heartstrings because I love this country. I am this country, and I want to be treated equally.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Lawrence. We appreciate it. When we come back, we will dig into a new report on racial equity right here in Metro Detroit.
As temperatures skyrocket and your AC feels the pressure, now is the perfect time to insulate. Don't suffer through a hot house and high energy bills. Insulate now and cut your energy bill up to 50% with Ace & Sons.
Call today and get 15% off installation.
Visit GallingRoseville.com and lease or buy your next vehicle online. Only at Galling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Roseville. During the Drive Forward event, lease the 2020 Jeep Gladiator Sport 4x4 for $309 a month employee, $359 friends and family. Or lease the 2020 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Sport 4x4 for just $359 a month employee, $399 friends and family. You search, you request, we deliver to your home or office. Shop GallingRoseville.com. Galling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Roseville.
Ready to purchase your first home? Not only will Hall Financial get you pre-approved same day, we're going to connect you with a top realtor in your area. Call 248-308-5000 or chat with us at davidhallmortgage.com.
The insurance companies hate us because the Mike Morse Law Firm wins more money than any other law firm in Michigan. They take aim, but they miss. Missed. My competitors, none of them like me. Because more people call the Mike Morse Law Firm for accident cases. They take aim, but they miss. Closer. Hurt in an accident? Call me. Let's go for the win.
Monday at 6 a.m. At long last, local salons can finally start fixing everyone's quarantine hairdos.
We haven't seen our guests in 3 months.
And they say they're ready to get to work.
We're going to outline what your next trip to the salon is going to look like.
Join us Monday at 6 a.m. on Local 4 News Today.
It's storm season and every moment counts. Now our new system is faster to help keep you safer. And we're the only ones in our area who have it. Local 4 and click on Detroit.
This week, New Detroit released its latest report on racial equity in our region. And as the COVID-19 pandemic made very painfully clear, there are major disparities in so many sectors, from healthcare to education to housing. And in many ways, they're really all connected. Let's go ahead and talk about it with the president and CEO of New Detroit, Michael Rafferty, and the CEO of Focus Hope, Portia Roberson. Thank you so much, both of you, for being with us here this morning. Michael, let's go ahead and start with you. Talk to us, explain to folks in a nutshell what this report is all about and as it relates to the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. For basic, brief context, when I came into New Detroit about a year ago, I said one of the things that we need to do is collect as much information as possible on racism. Racism is one of the biggest, most pervasive problems that we face in our country. It's one we faced for a very long time. We can't just look at symptoms and try to intervene with symptoms. We have to look at this holistically. We have to look at this comprehensively. And so we began earlier this year by pulling resources together to do just that, to collect data, to collect information and analyze it. What came out this week was the interim initial report. There will be many products coming throughout 2020. What we did, as you mentioned, is we examined racism in 6 different categories: education, housing, income, employment, and wealth, health, and discipline and incarceration. And as we were coming close to finalizing it, COVID struck, and we started to analyze how COVID intersected with each one of these categories. And by examining symptoms of racism categorically, we're able to show things like the disproportionate nature of COVID, as well as how COVID affects other categories. How COVID affects education, how it affects public health clearly, and wealth and income and all of these other things simultaneously. The next steps are for us to sit with practitioners and experts, members of our board and coalition at New Detroit, to understand what dig deeper, understand what the recommendations for each of these industries needs to be, and even sit with community groups to understand how people are directly being impacted by these disparities.
Yeah, and Portia, Michael mentions digging deeper. I think one of the most glaring portions of the report addresses how many African Americans in our community continue to face adverse living conditions. And I mean, it's something that you really have to talk about when you talk about COVID and its impact on our community.
Absolutely. I mean, I looked at the report and it's a phenomenal report. And just looking at the economic disparities is just so glaring. I mean, I think when you look at, what a white family has in comparison to what an African-American or Latino family has, it is shocking to see it on paper, right? And this is from somebody who deals with sort of these kind of issues at Focus Hope and sort of the need and the community that needs from us. We know these things, and yet it's still very shocking to see. This COVID-19 just blew it out the water in terms of health disparities and how people are living in places where, one of the things that's come out of COVID is like having a strong immune system. Well, how is that possible if you're not getting fresh food and you're not eating vegetables and fruit on a daily basis and you're living in a place that is considered a food desert? Or if you're living in a place where, quite honestly, your water may have been shut off and you may not be able to go home and wash your hands every day in hot soapy water as soon as you come from outside to prevent the spread of this disease. So, I mean, I really think that the report was timely in so many ways. And it also, with this coronavirus pandemic, it kind of exploded all of these things we need to be thinking about. You add on some of the things that have happened in the last 3 weeks. And again, just kind of an explosion of everything that's happening right now and pointing us towards that whole disparity between communities.
Right, and you talk about disparity and you talk about shedding light. There's also the conversation that's now being had about service jobs and our community and the workplace disparities that we now see that are very, very glaring and in focus now as we talk about this pandemic.
Sandra, one of the first pictures I saw coming early out of New York was people on the subway. And this was when they started to talk about social distancing and wearing a mask and all of these things. And people were sort of going in, so to speak, on the people who were on the subway. Why are they so crowded together? Why aren't they socially distancing? Why are all these people riding the subway? And, it took a few people to say, like, listen, for a lot of these people, this is the only way they have transportation to and from a job that they are not able to call in on or they're not able to work remotely from. And so this is not about, somebody not following the rules or not wanting to prevent the spread of this disease. This is because this was the only mode of transportation they had. It was the same situation in the city of Detroit. We had bus drivers who were exposed. Unfortunately, we lost one of the bus drivers who, had a person who got on the bus and coughed right over him. And, a couple weeks later, unfortunately, he passed away. And so, but a lot of the people who were riding the bus also had to go to jobs. They weren't in a position to call in and say, hey, listen, I'm feeling a little ill today. I'm not going to come, because if they said that, they were likely going to lose their job.
And we'd really be remiss if we didn't touch on the factors that make you vulnerable to COVID in the first place. I know you touched on it, talking about fresh food, in many cases running water, sanitation.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Mike can talk about this a little bit better than I can, but you think about, access to health care. I mean, a lot of people in certain communities can't go for preventative health care. So they have these underlying conditions that haven't really been addressed. And so something like COVID-19 explodes in a community where people already have underlying conditions. Mike, I'll let you get in a word in.
No, thank you. No, I appreciate everything you're saying, Portia, and I agree. The minute, it must have been in February or early March, when we first heard what COVID, how underlying conditions could exacerbate mortality and the severity of COVID. And at that moment, I think, there were a lot of epidemiologists, people I would speak to, leaders in the Black community, who were all saying, this is really not going to be good. And before the data came out from the various state health departments from Michigan, Illinois, Louisiana. And, the fact is, when you drill into a place like Detroit, where not only do you have high concentration of African Americans, but you also have, as Portia mentioned, poverty. And there's so many ways that you can look at, what poverty does and how poverty intersects with public health and health quality and care. There's some 25% roughly of people in Detroit who don't have access to healthcare because of cost. And that doesn't include mobility. When we've been talking for a long time about the high auto insurance rates and what that means for the ability for a family or a person who's ill to be able to get from point A to point B. And if point B is healthcare, they're not accessing it. So, when we talk about racism, and we talk about a lot of the things that, have come up and bubbled up over the last, few weeks and few months, each one of these things needs to be examined as a symptom of racism, right? Racism is the root cause. It is the cancer that's causing all of the other symptoms. Cancer causes nausea, headache, et cetera. It's the same thing here. Protest is an example of racism. It's a symptom of it. And so, when we talk more deeply and specifically about, COVID underlying conditions, there are many, many, many more. When you look at data like what we put together, there are many more disparate conditions that end up, affecting our community beyond just those numbers.
And Michael, and you touched on it. I think this report and these numbers are just the beginning. So we're just getting the conversation going. So Michael, Portia, we appreciate having both of you on here this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're going to get a quick update on Michigan's census effort when we return.
Hi, I'm John Fox at Fox Toyota of Rochester Hills, and we're taking every precaution to keep you safe. Visit our showroom today or shop from home online at toyotabyfox.com to take advantage of these lease specials.
Hit the road in the 2020 Corolla LE, now just $188 a month. Or lease the 2020 Camry LE for only $247 a month.
Call us today for details. We look forward to hearing from you soon at Fox Toyota in Rochester Hills.
Underage drinking is responsible for more than 4,300 deaths of youth annually. DWIHN, along with its provider partners, strive to educate young people on the deadly dangers of alcohol use and abuse. We teach youth about the dangers of drinking, especially when driving. If you are looking for resources to share with your loved one, give the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network a call, 24/7, 800-241-4949. Here to talk, here to help.
Hi, I'm David Stone with Bonner Upshaw of Tryon Solutions. During these challenging times, Tryon helps ensure tens of thousands of client employees are paid on time, receive benefits and assistance they deserve, and understand and comply with HR regulations.
We now look forward to businesses and their employees returning to work and facing the new normal. with greater passion than ever.
Be strong and well from all of us at Tryon Solutions.
Murder charges in the death of a black man who was in police custody.
People in Detroit, they want something that's real. They want justice.
I don't care about the media. I care about the message. That's all it is.
I'm right now doing it for them, and they are doing it for their future children.
There's something America has promised humanity that if it lives up to it, the world will be a better place.
You've probably seen hundreds of PSAs and billboards by now asking you to fill out the census. Hopefully you've done that, but let's go ahead and talk to Michigan Census Director Carrie Eversole-Singh to see where we stand right now. And where are we in terms of how much longer we have at this point to fill it out?
Well, they have extended the timeline, the U.S. Census Bureau, until October 31st, but please don't wait until October 31st. We'd love for you to fill out that census form as soon as possible, just to make sure that we're getting the resources we deserve here in Michigan.
And how is Michigan doing overall in the city of Detroit? Do we know at this point?
Well, yes, we do. The Census Bureau has been providing data to us almost every 24 hours. And as a state, currently in the last 24 hours, we've moved from fourth to third, back to fourth. We have a very, very big competition with some other Midwest states shaping up. But we are currently at 67.4%. And so we're only 0.3% away from what we achieved in 2010. And we can do better. There are areas of the state, you mentioned City of Detroit. It's been a tough battle. We've had a lot on our plate across the state and the country. But there's areas in the city that can do better by completing their census forms. But there's also areas like East Lansing, college towns, where students went home early from campus. And we have a number of census tracts that have low response, like 20 percentage points below where they should be, as well as some rural areas in Michigan. But I got to tell you one other thing. I know I'm just talking away here, but Livingston and Macomb County are two counties that are in the top 10 in the United States. They're doing a really great job.
All right. Well, it's good to know how we compare to other parts of the country and other parts of the state, too. So we appreciate you being here with us. And remember, you can fill out the census online at 2020census.gov anytime. Thank you so much for joining us. Devin will be back next Sunday. Have a great week.